At dawn, the drowned world begins to breathe. This is not land, and not quite river. It is a kingdom made of mud. In a place like this, danger rarely announces itself. It ripples. Fresh tracks, very large tracks, the kind that make smaller animals reconsider their morning plans. For something enormous, it is surprisingly easy to lose in the swamp. The surface is calm only when nothing important is moving underneath. The swamp records every step, even when the giant has already moved on.
Spinosaurus, the river giant, shaped by water as much as by bone.
Unlike the famous hunters of dry land, this animal belongs to the drowned places. The sail makes it unmistakable, but the real story is in the jaws, claws, and tail. Every step is a negotiation with the swamp. Fortunately, she has experience. That long snout is a fishing tool, not a decoration. Though, to be fair, it is quite a decoration.
A body this large should look awkward in water. Instead, it moves like it knows the rules.
Something smaller just moved. That is rarely good news for the smaller thing. The strike begins with stillness, which is deeply unfair to the fish. For a giant, this is precision work. One careless movement, and breakfast escapes. Then, suddenly, the quiet swamp remembers it is full of predators.
Success. Breakfast is slippery, wet, and apparently not thrilled about the situation.
A successful hunter does not waste energy. It lets the river bring opportunity close. In this wetland, even the sky feels heavy. Spinosaurus does not seem bothered. The water moves. The hunter notices. The fish, unfortunately, is late. Patience is not dramatic, but it is extremely practical. That tail may have helped drive this giant through water like a living paddle. Below the surface, light breaks apart, sound dulls, and every shadow becomes a warning.
The attack is brief, violent, and finished almost before the splash falls.
A fish this size would feed many hunters. For this one, it is a useful snack. The river gives, and the giant takes. That is the simple economy of the swamp. The hunt is over, but in this wetland, even a successful meal is carried with caution. Beyond the hunting channels lies something more fragile than prey. For an animal armed like a disaster, she can be remarkably gentle. The next generation begins not with a roar, but with a crack. A hatchling arrives, tiny, confused, and already wearing the family nose.
The hatchlings are already moving, badly, bravely, and with absolutely no understanding of how dangerous water can be.
Miniature versions of the adults, though for now they are mostly enthusiasm and poor coordination. A silent nest has turned into a noisy management problem. Even giant predators must occasionally do childcare.
They can walk almost immediately. Walking well is clearly scheduled for later.
For the young, the first journey is only a few meters,
it still feels like crossing a continent.
The first lesson is simple. Food usually lives in the water, and the water is rude. The hatchling tries its first hunt. The fish is not impressed.
For the young, the swamp is a classroom where every lesson is wet. The family moves carefully. In this place, even a puddle has opinions.
But the swamp has other mouths, and some of them wait very quietly. She does not need to attack. She only needs to be understood.
A fight would be costly. A warning is cheaper, louder, and full of teeth. The message lands. The family moves before the swamp changes its mind. For the young, safety has a shape, enormous, wet, and standing directly overhead. The first day outside the nest has already been difficult. Now the weather begins to change.
In the swamp, a change in weather is never just weather. It changes the rules for everyone.
For a hatchling, every puddle is an adventure. Unfortunately, some adventures have teeth.
The surface moves. The mother notices before the young understand why. Another hunter has found the nursery. It does not need to hurry. She answers with size, posture, and a very clear message. No closer.
Most battles in nature are avoided before they begin. Avoiding one is often the smarter victory.
The rain thickens, and the safe ground begins to shrink.
A warning is cheaper than a fight, and this warning comes with a great many teeth.
The crocodilian withdraws. Not defeated, simply patient enough to wait for another chance.
The nest is no longer safe. The family must move.
Their first journey begins in a storm, which seems unfair, but the swamp is not known for kindness. The mother slows her pace. The young are fast enough to be brave and slow enough to be a problem.
Balance is still a new concept. Mud is an enthusiastic teacher.
She counts them without numbers, using movement, sound, and instinct.
The family becomes a moving island of life in a rising world of water.
Higher ground is not always high. Sometimes it is only mud that sinks a little less.
A few steps behind can be dangerous. In this swamp, distance matters.
For the young, shelter has scales, a sail, and very large feet.
At last, a small rise in the mud becomes a fortress.
Safety solves one problem. Hunger creates another.
To feed the young, she returns to what she does best, hunting the channels.
Her jaws are built for this exact moment, patient, narrow, and very difficult to escape.
Above the surface, she is enormous. Below it, she becomes a shadow with teeth. The water hides her size, but not the pressure of her movement.
The target appears for less than a second. That is enough. The strike is fast, but not wild. This is practiced violence. The fish is caught, deeply unhappy, and about to become a lesson. Even giants need technique, especially when dinner refuses to cooperate. The hunt is over. The teaching is about to begin. The young recognize opportunity, even if they do not yet understand table manners.
To them, the fish is enormous, confusing, and probably moving too much.
The lesson is simple. This is food. The details will require practice.
The first student is brave. Not wise yet, but brave.
She does not feed them like helpless chicks. She shows them where survival begins.
The technique needs work. The enthusiasm, however, is excellent. This is not just a meal. It is training for a life spent between mud and water. A little food, a little practice, and a little luck. For now, that is enough. The young have eaten, but the swamp has not finished testing them.
Then the water becomes too quiet. In the wild, quiet can be a warning.
The mother sees it. The young do not. That is why she stands between them and the water.
She places herself exactly where she must be, between hunger and her young.
The crocodilian tests the distance. The mother answers with stillness and sighs. This is not an attack. It is a statement, and it is spoken fluently in teeth.
For several seconds, neither animal moves. The swamp waits with them.
One step is enough. The warning becomes impossible to misunderstand.
The old hunter leaves. Not beaten, but convinced that today is not worth the cost.
Only when the water settles does she allow the family to breathe again. The danger passes, leaving the swamp changed, but not silent.
She checks them not with hands, but with eyes, sound, and instinct. They move again, a little stronger than before, though still wonderfully clumsy.
The storm has carved new paths through the wetland, and the family follows one of them. For the smallest, survival begins by staying close to something enormous. From higher ground, she studies the wetland like a map written in water.
She is not invincible. But for these hatchlings, she is the closest thing to safety. Their path leads deeper into the wetland, where every day will ask a new question.
By dusk, the family becomes part of the swamp's shadow.
On their first day, the young have survived hunger, flood, and teeth. Tomorrow, the swamp will begin again.